I transmigrated into a dog-blood novel called For Fiancées Favor the Nanny's Son, becoming the Blackwood family's young master, a character so cowardly he died in the book. You've probably seen this kind of plot before. The original owner's life was a joke. My parents arranged 4 fiancées for me, all as beautiful as angels, and agreed that I would choose one to marry at my coming-of-age ceremony. But everything changed after a scheming nanny and her 3 children arrived. The nanny's family spent the male lead's family's money while constantly framing him for bullying them. They portrayed the nanny's son, Aiden Vance, as a victim, while the male lead became an oppressive bully, hated by everyone. And that brainless idiot of a male lead. He firmly believed his fiancées would trust him and didn't even try to defend himself. Gradually, the 4 female leads became increasingly disappointed in the male lead. In the end, Aiden Vance, driving a luxury car bought by the 4 fiancées, ran the male lead over and killed him. And those 4 women, only after the male lead's parents discovered the truth, jumped off a building in remorse. Belated affection is cheaper than grass. I sneered inwardly. I wouldn't wrong myself. No one can take what belongs to me. My gaze gradually turned fierce. Now that I'm here, your good days are over. A burst of noisy laughter came from downstairs. I got up and walked to the window, just in time to see a warm scene in the living room. The nanny's son, Aiden Vance, was surrounded by his 4 fiancées and his 2 older sisters. The candles on the cake tower flickered, while the nanny stood aside with a flattering smile on her face. Today was Aiden Vance's birthday, the very day in the original owner's memories when he was once again framed by Aiden Vance for deliberately ruining the birthday party. I smirked, a trace of cold mockery flashing in my eyes, and turned to walk downstairs. Aiden, hurry and make a wish, Serafina said softly. She was the eldest of the 4 fiancées and had more influence, and her eyes were full of pity as she looked at Aiden Vance. Yes, whatever Aiden wants, the sisters will buy it for you. Vivian was lively, holding a beautifully wrapped gift box in her hand. Alara didn't speak, just looked at Aiden Vance gently, quietly straightening his collar. Isolde stood aside, her expression cool, but with a hint of barely perceptible indulgence in her eyes. Aiden Vance's 2 older sisters were even more exaggerated, one helping him with his hair, the other taking pictures with her phone, constantly shouting, "Little brother is the most handsome." The nanny smiled and nodded. Our Aiden has had a hard life since he was a child. It's a blessing to have so many good girls care for him. Aiden Vance closed his eyes, clasped his hands together, and said in a deliberately aggrieved and weak voice, "I hope that my sisters can protect and love me all my life, and that we will never be separated." Just as he was about to open his eyes to blow out the candles, I suddenly rushed over and blew them all out with a whoosh. Everyone froze, staring blankly at me. I smeared a piece of cake with my finger, put it in my mouth, chewed it twice, and frowned. "Pooey, it's not tasty." As soon as I finished speaking, I waved my hand, and the multi-layered cake tower collapsed with a crash, splattering cream and fruit all over everyone. "Kayla Blackwood, are you crazy?" Serafina was the first to react, looking at me angrily. "Young master, what are you doing?" The nanny panicked and hurried forward to clean up. "We spent an afternoon preparing this." Aiden Vance's eldest sister screamed. "Are you doing this on purpose? It's rare for Aiden to have a birthday." I ignored them and went to the table laden with delicacies, all made with the family's treasured ingredients. They had hired a master chef from Luke Bernardine to make them, but they naturally didn't deserve such good things. I ate the food by myself, without turning my head, and said to the nanny, "From now on, only the master can sit at the table. You need to understand your place." "Kayla Blackwood, you're going too far." Vivian was so angry that her face turned red. "What did Aiden do to you? You're always targeting him." "That's right." Alara also plucked up the courage to say, "Aiden is so pitiful. How can you treat him like this?" Isolde frowned, her cool voice filled with reproach. "You better know when to stop, or we won't forgive you." Seeing this, Aiden Vance switched to the aggrieved mode in a second. His eyes reddened, and he knelt on the ground with a thud, tears falling like beads from a broken string. Young master, I know I shouldn't have had my birthday here. I shouldn't have taken up your space, but I haven't had a father since I was a child. It wasn't easy for my mother to raise me alone. I just wanted to have a good birthday. I didn't mean anything else. Please don't be angry, okay? I apologize to you. Our family of 4 will leave here immediately. Even if we starve to death, we will never set foot in the Blackwood family again. This pitiful appearance instantly ignited the anger of the 4 fiancées. They were usually pampered and indulged, and were most susceptible to this kind of act. At this moment, their saintly hearts overflowed. Serafina pointed her finger at my nose. Look at you. You forced Aiden to his knees. Why do you always bully him in secret? I'm bullying him? I'm just eating a normal meal in my own house, and not letting the nanny's family's children at the table is bullying him? I said blandly. You dare to say you haven't? Aiden Vance's second sister immediately chimed in. We all saw it. You just can't stand to see Aiden doing well. Then prove it, Vivian shouted. Prove that you haven't been bullying Aiden. Okay, I'll prove it now. I turned to look at the baseball bat standing in the corner, the corners of my mouth rising slightly. The original owner was framed like this by Aiden Vance, unable to defend himself, and was therefore increasingly disliked. But I'm not that kind of trash, that mute turtle man. That kind of person deserves to die, and no one will feel sorry for them. I walked over, picked up the baseball bat, weighed it in my hand, and in the shocked gazes of everyone, walked step by step towards Aiden Vance, who was kneeling on the ground. Young master, no, the nanny screamed, trying to stop me, but was stopped by the bodyguards. The Blackwood family's bodyguards should listen to me, but the original owner was too cowardly and never dared to use them. The tears on Aiden Vance's face instantly froze, a hint of fear flashing in his eyes, but he still put on a brave face and pretended to be pitiful. Young master, I know I was wrong, please. Please be gentle. His voice was pitiful, but his expression towards me was disdainful, and his eyes concealed provocation. He didn't believe that this useless young master in front of him would really dare to hit him. Whack! The baseball bat smashed hard into Aiden Vance's face, the massive force sending his body crashing backwards with a dull thud. Ah! Aiden Vance screamed, his mouth full of blood, curling up and rolling around on the ground, several bloody, broken teeth spat out beside him. I didn't stop, the baseball bat landing on Aiden Vance again and again, each blow with full force, because there was a fire burning inside me. Not for the male protagonist, of course, just this ridiculous plot was giving me high blood pressure. Let you fucking play pitiful. Let you frame and slander. Let you spend my money and dare to bully me. Everyone was stunned. The only sounds in the living room were Aiden Vance's screams and the sound of the baseball bat hitting his body. No one even dared to breathe loudly. They had never seen me like this, the young master who was always useless, never retaliating, never talking back. Today, I was like a different person, my eyes so fierce that they were chilling. I only stopped when the metal baseball bat was somewhat deformed and covered in blood. I casually threw the baseball bat aside and took a breath. Aiden Vance lay on the ground, on the verge of death, weakly groaning. I looked down at him, sneering, this is my proof. With trash like this, I can clearly and openly beat him. Why would I need to bully him in secret? Serafina and the others finally reacted and rushed to help Aiden Vance up. Aiden, how are you? Quick, get him to the hospital. Who dares to move? I suddenly roared, picking up a chair next to me and smashing it down at their feet. With a bang, 2 of the chair legs broke. Everyone stopped in fright, looking at me in horror. My eyes swept over everyone present, finally landing on the 4 fiancés. Today, anyone who dares to save him, get out of the Blackwood family. I guarantee she won't even find a door to beg for food in New York. My tone was icy, and my gloomy expression looked like I wasn't joking. The 4 fiancés had never seen me like this. They were trembling with fear and could only watch Aiden Vance lying on the ground, not daring to move. At this moment, I finally took a closer look at these 4 women. They were indeed, as described in the book, each as beautiful as a celestial fairy, a masterpiece of humanity. Serafina was gentle and lovely. Vivian was charming and lively. Alara was soft and quiet, and Isolde was aloof and stunning. It was a pity that they were a little slow-witted. Their eyesight was so poor, they were blinded by pig lard. My gaze shifted to the nanny and her two daughters. The three women still had fear and resentment on their faces, opening their mouths, but daring not say a word. I withdrew my gaze, looked at the four fiancées, and said in a calm but undeniable tone of authority, "Since you are my fiancées, you should fulfill your obligations. Today, Serafina will attend to my needs. For the rest of the week, each of you will take turns." What? Everyone was stunned. Before anyone else could speak, Aiden Vance's eldest sister suddenly screamed, "Oh, Mom, he's actually making us take turns serving him. It's one thing for my sister and me, but he's even including you, putting you in the rotation. He's two. Humph. Anyway, I won't be obtained by him so easily." After saying that, she stomped her foot affectedly, making me want to vomit. Slap. A crisp slap echoed, and I slapped her hard in the face, causing blood to flow from the corner of her mouth on the spot. "Wake the fuck up. What good things are you thinking about?" I looked at her obese figure with a cold gaze, my face full of disgust. When I said serve, I meant my four top-quality beauty fiancés. What the hell are you lot? Can't I rest for 3 days a week? I turned to the bodyguards at the door and shouted, "These three women, I'm now bestowing them on you. The only requirement is that you can't let them be idle." The bodyguards looked at each other, looking embarrassed. Young master, can we not?" "Of course you can." I nodded. The bodyguards breathed a sigh of relief and were overjoyed. "Thank you, young master. Whoever doesn't want them, get out of the Blackwood family," I added before they could finish. The bodyguard smiles instantly froze. They exchanged glances, then resignedly walked forward, propping up the still-dazed nanny and her two daughters, repeatedly saying, "Thank you, young master," and dragged them out. The living room finally fell silent, leaving only me, the four fiancés, and Aiden Vance, who was on the verge of death, on the floor. My gaze fell on the beautiful Serafina again, scrutinizing her. "Didn't you hear what I just said?" Serafina and the others were still in shock and couldn't react for a moment. Vivian was the first to recover, summoning her courage and standing out, with a hint of panic and resistance on her face. You can't do this." It was agreed that we could only choose one of us to marry. "If you take us all, that's bigamy. It's against the law." I looked at her exquisite face, raised my hand, and stroked it. This touch was so smooth and tender. I smiled evilly. "Honey, you're overthinking it. If I sleep with you all and then don't marry you, of course it's not against the law." After saying that, I ignored the others, walked to Serafina, and before she could react, I directly gave her a princess carry and picked her up. "Caleb, put me down. We have to abide by the agreement." Serafina struggled and shouted, her delicate little pink fists lightly hitting my chest. I looked down at her, my eyes with a hint of warning. "Behave yourself, or I don't mind doing it to you right here." Serafina was so frightened that she didn't dare move. Her cheeks flushed crimson, and she could only let me carry her upstairs to the bedroom. Vivian, Alara, and Isolde stood there, looking at each other, their faces filled with shock, panic, and a hint of subtle complexity. I glanced back at them, a playful smile tugging at the corner of my lips. Tomorrow it's Vivian's turn, the day after Alara's, and finally Isolde's. You better behave, or you'll be in for a world of hurt. After reaching the room, I kicked open the bedroom door and locked it behind me. Serafina's exclamation was still stuck in her throat when I pinned her hard onto the soft bed. Her struggles were like tickles against absolute power. I ripped off my tie, a hint of ruthlessness mixed with a touch of wickedness in my eyes. "Serafina, remember, you are Caleb Blackwood's fiancée. In this life, you are mine in life and my ghost in death." That night, Serafina went from initial resistance to complete limpness, crying until her eyes were red, but she didn't utter a single word of objection again. Afterward, I wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and pinched her perfect, flawless face. Wouldn't it have been better to be this obedient from the start? Serafina turned her head away, her ears red enough to drip blood, but she quietly snuggled closer to me. The next morning, I woke up to see Serafina sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at me with a complex expression. "Have you figured it out?" I asked. Serafina shook her head, then nodded. "I don't know, but I will do as you say, taking turns serving you." She knew in her heart that the Blackwood family's power was not something they could resist. Resistance would only lead to suffering. Moreover, she really wanted to know if what I said was true. I nodded in satisfaction, got up, walked to the window, and pulled back the curtains. Downstairs, the butler was arranging for people to clean up the mess in the living room, and Aiden Vance was nowhere to be seen. He must have been taken care of by the bodyguards. "Let's go down for breakfast," I said. Serafina followed behind me. When we reached the dining room downstairs, we saw Vivian, Ilera, and Isolde already sitting at the table, all wearing expressions of unease. The breakfast was lavish, but no one had the appetite to eat. I picked up a fork and ate slowly, then suddenly asked, "Where's Aiden Vance? Who took him away?" The butler hurried forward to reply, "Young master, last night, the nanny snuck back in while the bodyguards were asleep and rescued Aiden Vance. We don't know where they've gone now. Ran away." I raised my eyebrows, looking nonchalant. "No, they're used to living the good life. They definitely won't go back to a life of poverty. They'll come back and try to. Try again." Sure enough, as I expected, around noon, the nanny returned with Aiden Vance, still injured, and barged into the living room. "Kayla Blackwood, you get out here," the nanny shouted, her emotions very agitated. "What have you done to my daughters? Return them to me." Aiden Vance also cried out, "Young master, I know I was wrong. Please spare my family. My mother is old and can't take much. My sisters are all innocent." I came down from upstairs, watching the two of them standing below, one playing the victim, the other grief-stricken. They usually work together in this way to put on a show. But I watched them like it was a good play. Innocent? You spend my money and frame me, and now you have the nerve to say you're innocent? We didn't. The nanny's two daughters hobbled over, hugging their mother and brother and crying. "It was you who bullied Aiden. It was you who gave us to the bodyguards. You were the most vicious person." "Oh," I smiled. "I am vicious. Let's not talk about anything else, just the fact that you stole things from my house. The value of that alone is a very large amount, right? If you don't understand the law, it's okay. I'll give you time to search on your phone to see how many years you could be sentenced to. If you're still stubborn, don't blame me." The nanny's face instantly turned ugly, and a flash of panic crossed her eyes. She trembled as she opened her phone, her face growing paler as she read, until finally her eyes dimmed completely and the phone fell to the ground. Serafina and the others were also stunned by this scene, and they looked at the nanny with a hint of suspicion. You're talking nonsense. We didn't steal your things. The older sisters allowed us to use them freely," Aiden Vance shouted, trying to remain calm. The nanny's eyes lit up again when she heard her son say that, as if she had found a lifeline. "Is that so?" I turned to the butler and said, "Pull up the surveillance footage." The butler immediately took out a tablet and opened the surveillance footage from the study. The footage clearly showed the nanny sneaking into the study, taking a jade bracelet from the drawer and putting it in her bag. "This is my mother's meeting gift for her future daughter-in-law. Its value is enough to buy your whole family's lives. Before I chose a fiancé, the four of them couldn't act rashly. I don't believe that was also something they agreed to." Having said that, I glanced at the four fiancés. They immediately avoided my gaze, either lowering their heads or looking away. The three members of the nanny's family turned pale, unable to speak. Aiden Vance rolled his eyes and immediately started to play the victim again. "Young master, it's all my fault. I made my mother do it. I was really desperate. I just wanted to steal something to exchange for money to treat my illness. Don't blame my mother, blame me." "Aiden, what illness do you have? Why didn't you tell everyone?" "Actually, the older sisters can all help you." Vivian felt that what she said was inappropriate. Turning her head to look at me, she realized that my expression was very unpleasant and changed her words. "Actually, Caleb wouldn't just stand by and watch you become desperate, right? After speaking, she looked at me with pleading eyes, hoping that I could save this pitiful family. Damn it, these beauties are good in every way, but they're all damn saintly bitches. If you have the ability, you could be a good person yourself. No one will stop you. But if you use my money and resources, you have to pay the price. Okay, I agreed readily. Not only did the four women not believe it, but even the mother and son were dumbfounded. Could it be that the young master had gone back to how he was before? Someone come. Just as they were puzzled, I clapped my hands and called the bodyguards, send Aiden Vance to the hospital, and send his mother and sisters to get tested for matching. Once they match, replace his kidney. This completely frightened a few of them. When the bodyguards restrained Aiden Vance, he finally reacted. He hurriedly pushed them away and shouted at me. Young Master Blackwood, I didn't say I had a kidney problem. I just felt a little uncomfortable in my stomach. It shouldn't be that serious. Shut up, I said sternly. At that moment, I was possessed by the domineering CEO. I don't want you to think. I want you to think I think you should have a kidney transplant. You should have a kidney transplant. Then I shouted at the bodyguards. What are you still standing there for? Waiting for lunch. Yes, young master, we'll go now. The bodyguards were so frightened that they wiped the sweat from their foreheads and pulled them out. Caleb Blackwood, you won't die a good death. The nanny's screams faded away. Why, young master? We can serve you in bed. His two older sisters still tried to make a last-ditch effort. I turned around and waved my hand quickly, signaling for them to be dragged away immediately. I wasn't some kind of garbage disposal that ate everything. As they were hauled off, the hall fell silent. I could even hear the breathing and heartbeats of the beautiful women beside me. Clearly, they'd been frightened by me. At the dining table, they glanced at each other, their flustered expressions almost cute, like pieces of dough on a chopping board, waiting for me to knead them round or flatten them. I nodded, satisfied with their performance, then sat down next to Vivian. Seeing me sit, she stood up at once, forcing a smile. I'm done eating. You all take your time. She was about to flee when I grabbed her hand. What's the rush? It's your turn to accompany me today. We'll head to the company first later. Vivian's face flushed instantly. Her eyes held a hint of panic and resistance. But in the end, she nodded. I understand. Around 10 in the morning, I was handling company affairs in the office when Vivian walked in carrying a cup of coffee. Young master, have a cup of coffee. Vivian placed the coffee in front of me, her tone cautious. I looked up at her, picked up the coffee, and took a sip. It tasted pretty good. This kind of treatment was something the original owner never got to enjoy even until his death, but he deserved it. Simps don't get happy endings. She stood there without leaving, as if she had something to say. Speak directly if you have something to say. Vivian hesitated, then said, Young master, the nanny just called. She said they don't want to undergo the transplant surgery. What do you think? I nodded. Don't worry, the hospital knows what to do. Go down first. I'll call you if anything comes up. Vivian was smart. Seeing I wouldn't budge, she didn't ask further and withdrew. Of course, I'd given instructions to the hospital. First test each of the 3 mother and daughters one by one. Then after a few days, they'd all develop rejection reactions. Once we'd gone through all of them, we'd just decide to keep one. That way, each of them would lose a kidney. That night, Vivian came to my room on her own initiative. She wore a sexy nightgown and smelled of my favorite perfume. When I opened my eyes again, it was already noon the next day. I got up as usual and suddenly felt a discomfort in my waist. Thinking back on the past 2 days, I'd indeed been too wild. I needed to take better care of myself. The serious matters came first these days. After all, health is the foundation of everything. Alara was the gentlest and most considerate of them all, the ideal partner in any man's heart. As I walked up the stairs, I saw her downstairs peeking furtively up at me. When she saw me coming down, she hurried back to the dining table. I had company business to handle today. Vivian said she wanted to sleep a little longer. At the table, delicious breakfast dishes covered the surface. Alara ladled a bowl of soup and placed it neatly in front of me. The temperature's just right. Drink up. I took the soup from Alara. The temperature was perfect. She was truly OTT beyond words. Looking up, I met her lowered eyelashes. They trembled slightly, like the wings of a startled butterfly, making my heart itch. It's my favorite flavor. So they knew how to take care of people, too. Alara's ears turned red under my gaze. She twisted the hem of her clothes and whispered softly, "If young master likes it, I'll make it for you every day." Every day. I raised an eyebrow, set down the soup bowl, and nidju her chin, forcing her to look up at me. If you make it every day, even the best things get boring. I prefer changing flavors constantly. She understood my meaning. Her perfect face flushed bright red, like a ripe cherry. Yet she didn't dare struggle, letting me take liberties with her. That's more like it. Coincidentally, I had a business trip coming up, so I brought her along as my assistant. During the day, I handled matters while Alara stayed quietly by my side, organizing documents and fetching tea and water, without a single complaint. At night, back at the villa, she was even more attentive, so enjoying me comfortably. This was exactly the fantasy I'd had about a partner before transmigrating, living together by day, living together by night. A few days later, it was Isolde's turn. She was different from the other three women, cold as snow on a high mountain, yet extremely measured in everything she did. I asked her to accompany me to a business cocktail party. She wore a well-tailored black gown, wanja my arm with perfect poise, fending off countless unnecessary social interactions, and even quietly helping me seal a big deal. After the party, I grabbed her wrist as we got in the car and raised an eyebrow. "I didn't expect you had this kind of skill." Isolde lowered her eyes. Her voice was still cold, but with a faint, imperceptible softness. "The Blackwood family has taken care of us for so many years. The Blackwood family's affairs are my affairs." It seemed that blind tolerance only made people take everything for granted. Only by mixing kindness with authority, making them realize what they were about to lose, could they understand how much they'd actually benefited. That night, I personally stripped away her icy armor. She became fiery towards me, and afterward, she was as docile as a tamed cat. By the time I tamed all four of my fiancées, the butler suddenly reported that the nanny's family had been discharged from the hospital and were kneeling at the villa gate, crying and begging to come back to work. I couldn't help but snort. This family really won't give up until they see the coffin. They're still clinging on like this? Since they're so eager to die, I'm happy to help them fulfill their wish. In fact, if they hadn't come knocking, if they'd fled far away, they might have had a chance to live. I didn't even bother to deal with people like them. After all, since I'd arrived, they hadn't hurt me at all. They'd only been cruel to the original owner. But I had no good impression of the original owner either. A simp who gets abused has only himself to blame. I had no reason to avenge him. I just needed to take back everything that belonged to me. And that was it. Then living your own life is better than anything. But as it stands, this nanny's family doesn't plan to let go, so I can't be blamed for what I do. I had the nanny's family brought in. Looking at their pale faces and shaky steps after losing a kidney, I felt nothing. "Want to come back to work?" "You can." I crossed my legs on the sofa and spoke slowly. "There's a lot of stuff piled up in the shed in the back, and the garden needs weeding, the pool needs cleaning. I'll leave these jobs to you. Remember, 12 full hours of work a day. 1 minute less, and you don't get any food." The nanny's family's faces were ashen. Aiden Vance was trembling with anger. He was about to retort, but his mother stopped him. "Thank you, young master. We'll go do it right away. We'll go do it right away." The nanny was older, after all, and more experienced. Her face was beaming, and she was the first to stand up, pulling her children straight towards the back garden. She's an old fox, and I'm no pushover. Their little plans are obvious to me. They're just relying on my 4 fiancées' bleeding hearts, wanting to play pitiful in front of them, slander me, and sow discord. Maybe one day they'll have a chance to turn things around. Unfortunately, the bigger the hope, the bigger the disappointment. I'm not giving them that chance. I had the bodyguards watch them. Except for work time, they were locked in a shed. They weren't even allowed near the main villa. I kept my 4 fiancées under close watch. They either accompanied me to the company or stayed home with me. They didn't even have a chance to meet the nanny's family. Because I knew, due to the plot, the four of them had little resistance to the male lead's family. Days passed, and the nanny's family was tortured beyond recognition by heavy labor. The nanny's back was even more hunched, and her two daughters had also become thin. Last time I complained they were fat. This time, after they lost weight, they immediately tried to seduce me again. I only glanced at them before ordering them dragged away, because they weren't pretty even after losing weight. Aiden Vance's pitiful face also became sallow and gaunt. This was more in line with his pitiful punching bag image. After more than half a month, they still hadn't seen the people they wanted to see. They couldn't take it anymore. If this continued, they would either die or be driven crazy. They were burning with anger. One night, they finally gathered together for a meeting, figuring they couldn't just sit and wait for death. But all of this was heard clearly by the person I had planted to monitor them. They actually did it. They bought sleeping pills and bribed the bodyguard. Everything went so smoothly that they felt unbelievable. They even had the illusion that they were the chosen ones. Those who achieve great things must first suffer in their hearts, toil in their bodies, starve their skin, empty their bodies, and disrupt their actions. Therefore, they're moved in their hearts and harden their nature, increasing what they could not do. They recalled their experiences over the past few months. They had gone through all these things, and it was time to achieve great things. Late at night, the moon was dark and the wind was high. The nanny's family sneaked out of the shed, clutching a small bottle of sleeping pills, and crept towards the bedroom in the main building. Their plan was simple. First drug me, then have Aiden Vance consummate the relationship with the four fiancées. When the deed was done, they would add fuel to the fire and complain. The family would repeat their old tricks, act pitiful, and Serafina and the others would definitely stand on their side. Unfortunately, they had just reached the bedroom door when all the lights in the corridor suddenly came on. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, watching them with a half smile. So late, not sleeping? What are you doing here? The four of them froze instantly. The sleeping pills in their hands fell to the ground with a thud. Young master, we came to bring you a midnight snack. The nanny reacted the quickest, hastily forcing out a flattering smile. A midnight snack? I bent down and picked up the bottle of medicine, shaking it. This is the midnight snack you brought? Aiden Vance forced a smile onto his flustered face and tried to quibble. Yes, but I'm sure you've already had your snack, so we won't bother you. He reached out to snatch the thing in my hand. Don't, I sneered and snapped my fingers. The bodyguards immediately came forward and controlled them. I've had mine, but I hate wasting things the most. Feed them this stuff. No matter how much they struggled, it was futile. The bodyguards' pride opened their mouths and poured it in. Then the bodyguard walked over with a laptop and opened a video. The screen showed the scene of the nanny's family plotting in the shed. Aiden Vance said through gritted teeth that he would ruin my reputation. I had made him suffer so much, and he wouldn't let me off easily. The nanny said in a sinister voice that she would make the four fiancées pregnant with Aiden Vance's children, and then I would raise their children for them. After 100 years, the family fortune would be theirs. The two daughters chimed in, their faces extremely ugly. I had them open another video, which showed the clips of the original owner framing me all these years. Aiden Vance deliberately broke an antique vase, then lay on the ground crying. The nanny fanned the flames, saying that the original owner had hit him. He also fell down the stairs himself and said that I had pushed him. He washed his face with hot soup and said that I had splashed it on him. The evidence is conclusive. What else do you have to say? I looked at them and said calmly. Actually, I didn't have much emotion because the male protagonist in the video wasn't me back then. The four fiancés were also alarmed and rushed over. They looked at the content of the video, trembling with anger. Serafina even cursed out loud. You a bunch of ingrates. The Blackwood family treated you so well, but you repaid kindness with malice. We were really blind before. Vivian clenched her fist, her chest heaving violently. Young master, these people can't be kept. Keeping them is just a disaster. Even the usually gentle Alara was so angry her eyes were red. Although she didn't say anything, the look she gave them was full of disgust. Isolde, always decisive and quick-tempered, her chest rose and fell sharply, her eyes icy. Sisters are right. Hand them over to me. I'll deal with them myself. Looking at the four women united in hatred, I nodded in satisfaction. The original plot was that after the male lead's parents found out the truth, the four of them tortured the nanny's family to death and then jumped off a high-rise building. But what's the point of doing that? That's what annoys me most about these kinds of novels. After being abused, the male lead either dies or just leaves. Then he lets others regret it. But what's the use of that? I still prefer to repay kindness with kindness and revenge with revenge. Don't worry, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I won't dirty my own hands, I said slowly. However, there are plenty of ways to deal with these kinds of people. Lock them up together first, and act according to plan tomorrow. As soon as the nanny heard that I was going to lock them up together, she panicked. No, Aiden drank that stuff. You can't. I couldn't be bothered to listen to what they were saying and wave my hand for people to do as I said. The next night, I had people stuff the nanny's family into a speedboat and take them directly to international waters. The sea breeze howled, whipping up monstrous waves. The mother and 3 children, covered in blood, were pushed onto the deck, their faces filled with a life-weary indifference. Didn't they like to play the pitiful act? Then let their end be truly pitiful. I'll grant them that. The bodyguards didn't waste any time and threw them directly into the sea. Piercing screams cut through the night sky, quickly swallowed by the waves. Then, a patch of blood rose on the surface of the sea, and the sound of sharks tearing at their prey could be faintly heard. At the same time, I boarded a private plane with 4 stunning beauties and soared into the clouds. The beginning of our round-the-world trip had begun. We planned to play abroad first, then go overseas and travel all over the world. Serafina was still gentle, but with a bit more charm. Vivian was lively and playful, clinging to me tightly. Alara was thoughtful and considerate, taking care of me in every way, and Isolde's coldness faded, occasionally revealing a girlish side. The plane passed through the clouds, and the sunlight shone on us. Looking at the 4 women with smiling faces beside me, I felt extremely happy. My life has only just begun.